There are only 2 states in these United States where an attendant is supposed to pump your gas instead of you. Your job's to stay in the car. The states are on opposite coasts, New Jersey and right here in Oregon, of course. It's been that way in the Beaver State since 1951, all in the name of safety. The state was worried about all sorts of things: gas being a fire hazard, people slipping on the ground when it was raining, older people or people with disabilities having difficulty, or just the fact that gas fumes are a health hazard. But a bill that's coasting through Salem could very soon change that and leave Jersey all in its lonesome in the gas pump service industry. We're talking about House Bill 2426. It has bipartisan support and already cleared a major hurdle by passing the House of Representatives on a 47-10 vote. Here's what it would do. And by the way, there is a difference between Oregon's urban and rural counties in this. In the state's 16 more populated counties, stations could designate up to half their pumps as self-serve. They would need to keep at least one gas attendant on site to pump gas for customers who don't want to do it themselves. In Oregon's 20 other lesser populated counties, no attendant is required, meaning the stations could go fully self-serve if they wanted to, but they're also able to keep attendants if they want to in order to keep the customers happy. The stations across the state would have to charge the same price for gas, whether you're pumping it yourself or having the attendant do it. And in case you're wondering, here's a quick list of what are considered the 20 rural counties where an attendant would not be required. They are Baker, Clatsop, Crook, Curry, Gillum, Grant, Harney, Hood River, Jefferson, Klamath, Lake, Malheur, Morrow, Sherman, Tillamook, Umatilla, Union, Wallowa, Wasco, and Wheeler. And that's how much we love you. We'll actually say the name of your county. The rest are considered, by the way, urban counties where an attendant would have to be present for at least half of the pumps. Now, as I said earlier, the bill made it through the House of Reps and had its first hearing in the reading, that is, in the Senate yesterday. Now it's waiting on a Senate committee referral. Once there'll be a public hearing and a work session before eventually going to the full Senate for a vote. Now, I should warn you, bills similar to this one have failed in the legislature at least twice before. So, what do you think? Does this one stand a better chance? It looks like the answer is probably yes. We checked in with 2 of the bill's chief sponsors in the Senate. One's a Democrat, one's a Republican. Incredible, don't you think? They both wanted to be interviewed together. How's that for bipartisan? And they think this is the year it's going to get through.
I feel very strongly that it's going to sail right through the Senate as well. This has been a tried and tested bill that has come before us before, had a lot of great discussion, and I believe the Oregonians have overwhelmingly have said over 60%, I believe, that are ready for some capacity of self-serve gas. So I think we're going to be able to respond to that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think the nice thing about the bill is what it does is it takes into account those different jurisdictions and the local feedback of the different considerations that you would have throughout the state, whether it be in a more rural part or a more metro-centric area. And it really does. Even within the Bonham household, I can tell you my mom, who really still wants the service, will be able to get it. And my brother, who wants to be able to pump his own gas, will be able to as well. So we're really accommodating everybody with this concept.
By the way, an interesting part of the bill is that it includes an emergency clause that says it would go into effect immediately if it makes it to the governor's desk and she signs it. And the senators told us that part is important because of a labor shortage that's an issue for drivers right now.
The reason that we are addressing this in an emergency situation is because we are seeing such an incredible workforce shortage across Oregon in these positions. So we do have to respond to that in a way that will get this moving along so that we can potentially save some of those companies, some of those stores from closing. We want to make sure that we continue with the service. So that's why we have to respond to that.
And not that we govern ourselves by polling, but there have been consistent polls taken over the last few years that show that 2/3 of Oregonians are ready for this. They're looking for this option. Those of us that drive diesel vehicles have been self-fueling for years. It calls out motorcycles being able to now self-fuel at all times. So, I do think this is something that most people want. I absolutely understand that there will be some people that will never come around to this. But because it's popular and again, because the relative emergent need that I think has kind of raised this to the forefront of people's minds with the employment shortages, I do think it's necessary and is necessary sooner than later.
And the labor shortage is pretty in your face, especially in some parts of the metro area. People have waited in line for 15 minutes, maybe even a half hour, because there's just not enough attendants to come around and pump your gas. Some stations closed because they didn't have anyone to work the pumps. It's an issue that we've been hearing about firsthand, and it's also been delivered to lawmakers during testimony in Salem.
The gas stations in Oregon are already suffering from severe employee shortages. It's hard to find people who are willing to pump gas.
We're all competing for the limited number of labor that's out there.
So will the bill actually pass this year? We'll have to wait and see. Naturally, two of the chief sponsors we spoke with, they're very optimistic, but optimism does not guarantee results, although seems pretty likely here. Even if it does pass the Senate, Governor Kotek would have the final say. She has not made any comment about this lately that we're aware of, so we asked her press secretary yesterday for a comment regarding the bill, and we got the answer that journalists are used to. Quote, "The governor does not generally comment on pending legislation." End quote. Thanks. So we'll see. But I will admit it's a little refreshing to have politicians on different sides of the aisle working together, even if it's for something like pumping our own gas.
I really appreciate giving Oregonians opportunity to see Democrats and Republicans working together on issues. And I think this is one example of that, and out of many. And I just appreciate hearing all different perspectives, and that we see the issue and we come together and try to find a solution for that. So I've enjoyed this.
I think the bill really highlights that the rural-urban divide isn't always a negative thing, that sometimes it just means some extra consideration. I mean, the bill calls out 16 counties to do one thing and 20 counties to do another. And it's responsive to different parts of the state. I think, to Senator Solomon's point, that ability for us to come together and work together and take into consideration what the local needs are is so important. And so, sometimes divide is good, and we can cater a piece of legislation to accommodate the local need.
By the way, we'll be talking a lot more about that divide next week on The Story. That's when we'll share my reports from my listening tour of Eastern Oregon and why so many residents are fed up with lawmakers, feeling they're not being heard or cared about in Salem. That series begins Monday on The Story. But in the meantime, what do you think about this bill to allow us to self-serve at the gas pump? Are you for it or against it, and why? I'm for it, by the way. I'm tired of waiting. Also, let us know. Send us an email to thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090.